Museums have some of the best practices for care of items in the world. So when looking to choose a good leather conditioner, why not learn from the best? Let's explore what leather conditioners museums use, and like me, you might be really surprised at what you find out. So what is it? Tell me already. Well, the answer is hiding underneath this piece of leather. And the reality is, in most cases, museums don't use any leather conditioning products at all. In fact, some museums have found that items they own which have previously been treated with saddle soap are in generally worse condition than some similar items that they have which have not been treated with it at all. Really interesting. And that's looking at museums who have had things for long periods of time and who have been able to study the effects of those conditioners on those items. And this touches on some other videos we've made on the quality and helpfulness of some conditioners, and also how some products can actually be damaging long term, which is why museums don't use them. The primary goal is about conservation and maintaining the structural integrity of the leather for many decades or even centuries or longer as possible. Part of preserving history is finding items wherever they may have been found, however they may have been kept, and then trying to keep them in that state, preventing any further deterioration to help save some of those historical pieces. And yes, the answer is still underneath this leather. I will show you in just a moment. For more context, the items, depending on the age and the tanning and technologies used at the time, can also have really unique combinations of chemical elements. There may be oxidation, oils from previous conditioning, and staining from use. This makes it so that depending on the state of decay, adding any kind of new conditioning oils might actually react with some of the pre-existing substances and lead to further and accelerated decay and weakening of the fibers. And that would be the opposite of what museums are trying to do. So given the complexity of where this leather has been and what's in it, it actually may make sense to simply not add anything further into it. But hold on, doesn't that mean it's just going to deteriorate further? Which is what nobody wants. There's a way. And also to remember too, as leather ages, the ability to absorb fats and oils is reduced. On archaeological and historic leathers, it's about 3 to 5% of the leather composition are fats and oils, whereas their modern counterparts are going to be around 10 to 12%. So that's a significant increase in the modern ones versus the older ones. So if we're trying to put as much conditioning into the vintage leather items and archaeological leather items that we do the new ones, it may actually cause some damage. And because of that, most leather items in museums are meant mainly for observation and not wear. They simply do not require the flexibility that everyday items do. For those items, we want them to be strong, durable, and flexible, able to be used every day, reliably, and comfortably. For archival items, the focus can be purely on maintaining the fiber strength, which often does not need additional fats and oils when it's maintained in the proper temperature and humidity. And with that, few to no oils, waxes, or fats are added. That's wild. I always thought they had some kind of super special formula that was like a trade secret and they kept it and passed it down from museum to museum and it did magical things. Nope. So how do they maintain it? Here it is, what you've been waiting for. Humidity and temperature. That's right. It's as simple as that. With humidity, they typically keep it between 40 and 60%. And with that, they aim for about a 5% daily fluctuation and an 8% overall. And that matters a lot, because if we take a look here, here's a piece of vegetable tan leather. This will help illustrate the importance. So here, we can see the fibers that are in the leather itself. When humidity increases, so does the moisture content of the leather, and the fibers are going to expand. And when humidity decreases, they're going to contract. And that is essentially movement of those fibers larger and smaller, larger and smaller. And if we're familiar with leather, the more that we move it and bend it and flex it, bend it and flex it, move it and move it, more and more and more and more, those fibers are going to, you guessed it, get weak. And when those fibers weaken, they start to degrade and the leather deteriorates. So if they can keep the humidity within a certain predefined range without much fluctuation, it's going to reduce the movement of this leather. And if it's not moving, it's not going to be degrading as much. And if it's not degrading or needing to flex, it's not going to need as much conditioning. Anything above 68% is going to swell that leather. Anything below 22% is going to result in permanent water loss, shrinkage, and damage. Next, we're going to look at temperature. And the ideal is around 68 degrees Fahrenheit with a max of 77 with a 7-degree daily fluctuation. Too warm could lead to easier drying out of the leather, and too large a fluctuation can lead to a weakening of the fibers, again through that expansion and contraction. And a third element that museums use often to help maintain the items is proper airflow. Airflow can help reduce the chance of mold growth that is possible in otherwise stagnant, humid environments. Unless it is in a dedicated, oxygen-free environment, which is mostly only found in museums, having some occasional airflow around the stored item can be really beneficial, given that it's in the proper temperature and humidity. So how does this help us? Most of us are not running museums in our homes. However, we can take away a few helpful things for our leather care. Number one is know what you're putting into your leather. If we intend to keep items for long periods of time, we generally want to use natural, gentle conditioners that will work best to maintain our items. And second, store our items well, in the proper temperature and humidity to keep them in great condition. If you have any questions, let us know. If you have any experience to share, maybe even some tips beyond this, please do. And there you have it. Until next time.